even as we speak. But let's move on this morning and reflect on something quickly. Yes, we're trying to see how we tackle the needs of persons with special needs. So we are reflecting on inclusive access for education in Nigeria. And I have a specialist who is joining me right now, Mrs. IJ Popoola, who's of special education and teacher stroke founder of Mrs. IJ's Kids Inclusive Foundation. Nice to have you, madam. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Victor. Nice to have you too. Thank you, sir.
Wonderful. So how did you find yourself in this field? I mean, having to go into special needs and getting specialization in this area. How did you find yourself there?
Funny enough, I actually used to own a restaurant, and when I had that restaurant, I decided to substitute teach in my children's school part-time. And it was at this school that I found that there were some Nigerian children that needed special needs and special attention.
Right.
And my heart just gravitated towards it. Long and short, I knew that this is what God had called me to do, and I decided to just pursue it full time.
And what does that mean, that your vocation or perhaps your passion for the restaurant you had, was that a misadventure?
No, actually, I feel like it was a means to this end. You know, I believe that things happen for a reason. And it was because I was in that class, I learned so much. And I also realized that there was a need for inclusive education here in the country of my birth.
Right.
And so I just couldn't let it go.
Right. So this restaurant that you were running at that time, was it in Nigeria or outside Nigeria?
It was actually outside of Nigeria. And it was at this restaurant that I realized that I had customers whose children had special needs. And because this was more, I feel, at the time, where I was supposed to be, I decided to pursue it. So that's how we found ourselves here.
Wonderful. So you now decided to go for training in inclusive access for education. Is that correct?
Yes. So part of this whole thing was that during the time I had the restaurant, I used, you know, we in Nigeria, sometimes we are hustlers. So I used to do some small acting here and there. And so the state of Oklahoma, where I was, had a $10 million grant to help people get back on their feet. So they decided to pay for me to go to special education school. Everything just led up one to another. I couldn't deny that this is where I was supposed to be.
Right.
And so I pursued it head on.
Wonderful. And I'm just wondering how you just keyed up into it. I mean, this is something relatively new, and all of a sudden you are gravitating towards special needs. I'm looking at how you were able to switch from one end to the other and still maintain a lively disposition.
Well, you know, it is very important to realize that sometimes we're on this earth not put for ourselves. We're on this earth to help somebody else. And even though the restaurant I had was a service, I felt that there was a bigger need for students who were not being able to go to school because of a disability, for parents who had children with disabilities, they didn't have related services, and for not having appropriate government funding, especially here in Nigeria. I felt like the need was much higher. And so I have an intense passion to be able to help those who may not be able to afford ABA specialists, who may not be able to afford speech therapists. All of this is inclusion. And then the most important thing is realizing that inclusive education is supposed to be free and government funded.
All right.
So there's a lot needed for this.
Which is very, very good that you're coming into this, because that's an area that has been lacking in Nigeria. But before we talk about the capital, or perhaps the expertise that you're bringing on board, let's reflect a bit and take our listeners through. When we talk about people with special needs, who are we referring to?
Well, we are talking about children who are diagnosed. Categorically, there are 13 categories of special needs. You have needs that are severe, that might be like cerebral palsy, sometimes a version of Down syndrome, but students who may not be able to eat, and take care of themselves. Then you have mild mod is what they call them. So the severe and profound special need, you have special education teachers for that. For the mild and moderate special needs, there are learning disabilities such as dyslexia, not being able to just, you know, emotional disturbance is what they call it, and being on the autism spectrum. So there are different special education teachers to target the 13 categories which a child, once assessed, then the special education teacher knows how to plug into the child's individual education plan. Right. Again, the IEP is what we call it, is for education. Right. So we're looking at students who have disabilities who should be able to be enrolled into school, whether free or private, but should be able to be enrolled into school because they shouldn't be left out of society and learning just because of a disability.
All right. So in Oklahoma, where you learned or where you studied, people with special needs, they have a kind of robust program to cater for them. Is that correct?
Oh, it is state mandated. It is against the law to refuse a student with disability to come to, especially a free, whether we can say federal to have some comparison, but state and government funded school. It is not the law. So you can't deny a child education because of their disabilities. So yes, everything is provided.
All right.
You don't even have to pay. You don't have to pay for occupational therapists. You don't have to pay for speech language therapists, all the related services, even up to transportation.
All right, just 1 second.
If a child has cerebral palsy,
yeah,
the school has to provide a bus to go get that student from wherever they are.
Wonderful.
To bring them to
just 1 second. Let me take this update that is coming in. Lagos Traffic Radio 96.1 FM. Hello there.
Good morning, Traffic Radio.
Good morning.
Traffic manager, I'm John from Ejibo.
All right, then talk to me. What's happening within your corridor?
Present location is at the control. I want to give you an update concerning the overnight accident that happened in Russia. The trailer, fast body trailer,
right, that ran into the median. Right. Right.
The national officials are not still on ground to ensure the evacuation is done properly.
Okay. Okay.
The counter now, as other vehicles returning from Ejibo, Penchant Bridge, are facing the other side of the traffic, those going towards the opposite direction. Also attached ground in counter flow. As soon as they are able to evacuate into Penchant, traffic will return to normal and close the backlog.
All right then. Thank you very much for that one. All right, that's from the Eko end. We did talk about that articulated vehicle which ran into the median at Eko, so it's being worked on at the moment. All right, so madam, let's quickly reflect on this. So when did you return to Nigeria?
Well, I'm actually here to conduct research. So I'm currently taking or pursuing my doctoral degree with my thesis and dissertation focusing on the inclusive education in Nigeria. So my desire is to help with policy, because we already have a policy to have students with disabilities enroll into school. It's 8 of the Nigerian policy, the NPE.
Right.
It's there. All those things are there. So my goal, my desire is to collaborate with those already on the ground. I call them our warriors who are advocating for students with disabilities and just children with disabilities in general.
Right.
So that is my plan.
And what have you found so far so good in terms of inclusive access for education for persons living with disability? What have been your findings in Nigeria?
So my finding honestly is that if not for, I call them angel donors, if not for individuals who are supporting, especially the parents. Parents have so much in terms of the challenges and the emotional support needed, the financial support needed, if not for individuals who are helping these parents to make sure that children with disabilities are treated with dignity. People with disabilities are treated as human beings, not just people who we just disregard, by society, because I understand there's also the stigma and sometimes our culture of not understanding, but I've found that are slowly turning around, not as fast as we would like, but they're slowly turning around. And then we have inclusive schools. Inclusive schools are good. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you think about the idea of inclusion,
right,
children with disabilities must be taught with children without disabilities. Okay. There's a social interaction that is part of education. Because if you don't start them young, then how will a person understand how to deal with someone who has vision impairments, or hearing, it needs hearing aids, or a child who has Down syndrome? It starts when they're little. That's how you develop a society into something great.
All right.
Everything starts with education.
Which is very, very good. And I'm hoping that we can get you in the studios and then we can tap a little bit more from your pool of knowledge, because you seem to be vast in this area. But for IJ's Kids School that you run, what is that school located in Nigeria?
So no, it is a foundation.
Okay,
and the idea of the podcast is to spread awareness. Because I tell people disabilities don't discriminate. You can be somewhere in America and someone in Nigeria. Down syndrome is Down syndrome. Cerebral palsy is cerebral palsy. Parents are experiencing the same because we are in this together. And so this foundation is to help with training more special education teachers. Oh. Let it not be known that we turn a student away because there is no special education teacher. So I'm partnering with teachers that I've gone to school with, teachers that I've trained with, specialists that I've trained with, so we can come and partner with those on the ground in Nigeria so we can make Nigeria a much better place for all of us.
I love that. All right, then IJ Popoola, quickly, for those who want to connect with you, how can they do that?
Well, I'm on social media. I'm on social media as Miss IJ's Kids. And also the Miss IJ's Kids Inclusive Foundation is also a website. You can find it at www.Miss IJ's Kids Inclusive Foundation. And I have a podcast. We're streaming on Apple, Spotify, Google, and we also have a YouTube channel where we'll be uploading.
All right.
We have an episode now of a Nigerian woman who went to school in America, in Oklahoma, and got into an accident and is in a wheelchair. Her name is Lizzie O, and it's such an inspiring episode that's coming on March 20th.
All right, then. That'll be very nice. I hope I can connect with you someday and get you back in the studios.
Yes, sir.
That'll be pretty nice.
Thank you so much for having me on here.
Nice linking up with you, IJ Popoola. IJ Popoola, that's a mixed breed, so you must be from where now? Igbo and...
I'm Igbo and my husband is Yoruba, so
wonderful.
What can we say?
A true reflection of a Nigerian, that's what it means.
Yes, sir.
All right, then.
Sir.
Nice connecting with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the very first part of the program this morning. We're going to be switching gears very, very shortly to look at our health. How can we stay healthy? With special reference on World Kidney Day. Today is World Kidney Day. What are the things that